today's date, February 9th, I think. 8th. Whoops, I'm ahead of myself. 1997, and I'm at the home of Madge Guthrie.
Right.
That's right. What was your name before you married a Guthrie?
Whitley.
Whitley. All right. Can you tell me a little about yourself? Were you from that Harkers Island? Or?
Yeah, I was born and bred here on the island. I've got bed in there. I was born one.
Oh, goodness.
But my father was from up in the mid part of the state near Rocky Mount. And he lived here for 50 years but never became a waterman. He used to say he'd get seasick in a wash pan. He went all this time he lived here, he went to Cape Legat one time.
Oh, my
and got seasick and would never go again. Mother and myself went every chance we got. We let to stay over there. But he was raised on the farm and but loved railroading. And he left the farm when he was 19. He met, Mother was teaching up in that area, and that's where they met.
Oh, and was she from Harkers Island?
Yes, she was born and bred.
Oh, goodness.
So,
and she was a, did you say Whitley?
she was a Willis.
Willis, I'm sorry.
Daddy was a Whitley.
Yeah.
And there were only 2 families of Whitleys on here, and there's no connection.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of those.
Another one of those.
Yeah.
What did your father do for work when he was down here?
He was, like I say, self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
He'd, like say, they married right into the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever they could do, a lot of the times, then he couldn't work in the water or didn't have the knack for it. He would go back upstate and work the railroads or whatever he could get to do. But Mother stayed on here. She was trying to teach.
Okay.
And that was about the way it was until... And after that, he was a very independent person. He was self-employed, and he, after the WPA and the government jobs kind of got people back on their feet, then he ran a delivery truck from here to Beaufort and Moorhead, and he'd carry stuff back and forth.
Wow.
That was long before the bridge. He used the old ferry. So we had, for years, it was strictly by water, by mailboat, and they had a ferry system that went from here over to Gloucester. And after the ferry, then they put in the bridge.
I see.
And
do you remember the ferries?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We used mailboats long after the ferry. I mean, it was very seldom, unless you had an automobile, which were not plentiful on here, because what you need with them?
Right.
You had to go over to Gloucester, and it would take you an hour to get to Beaufort, where we could go to Beaufort in 15 minutes, 20 minutes on the mailboat. So we continued to use the mailboat.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I remember those mailboat trips real fun.
Oh,
I still
yeah.
rather go by boat than go by car anywhere, anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. How often did the mailboat run?
Every day. Yeah. Weather permit.
Uh-huh. Just,
And
it would just
about-
be one day leaving, one time a day
Yeah,
leaving.
go in the morning, come back in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It would, and about the only weather that stopped them would be storm. Rain, sleet, snow, and all that didn't stop them.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, let's see, when did you join the Wesleyan Church, or how did you become a
Well,
member?
like I say, this church was one that came out of the Northern Methodist, which was disintegrating at that time anyway, it all became United Methodist eventually. But there was conflict with them. It was one of those when we felt like, you wouldn't believe some of the ones we got, and the people got the feeling like we were just getting cast-offs. And they pulled out and went into what was the old theater building then. And it's burned about a year ago.
Oh,
It
dear.
was down on the corner right across from Texaco. And then they built the Free Grace Church in 39 and 40. Was when it was built there. And it was non-denominational up until it joined the Pilgrim Conference. And then the Pilgrim Conference and the Wesleyan merged. So that's how we became Wesleyan.
Oh, goodness. Wow. And then that Wesleyan's somewhat associated with Methodist.
Yeah, well, it was Wesleyan Methodist, but it's just
Yeah.
for so many words, I think they just cut it down to Wesleyan, and each church has their own name, which was Free Grace. And so it's Free Grace Wesleyan. Otherwise, it would have had to be Free Grace Wesleyan Methodist. So,
Oh, that's long, isn't it?
yeah. And it's over the years that they've just left it off.
I got a little confused when you said they felt like they were getting cast-offs or something. Was
Yeah,
that when they
and
were
way back in the 30s. I
Uh-huh.
mean, the church was, the Northern Methodist was disappearing anyway. Oh yeah, they locked the doors on it, and Elaine's father-in-law, he was a teenager, and like I said, I was a kid of 8, 9, and they locked the doors so we couldn't take anything out.
Oh.
And he lifted me up on his shoulders, and I climbed in the windows and got the songbooks.
No kidding.
So we could have songbooks over there.
Oh, goodness.
So I remember a few of the things from the church, but it was from the old church, but it was just one of those things which was playing out anyway. And we felt that, or they felt at that time. I've heard them talk more about it. Of course, as a kid, them pulling out and going to other church was just a big ball to me. It was something exciting, you know. That's how little we knew about it. And, and this church, so I've been there 55 years now.
Wow. And has it had many of the same members through that whole time?
Yes. Well, the new ones that come in, a lot of them has passed away.
Yeah.
Most all of them had. Did you notice the white-headed lady that sat over on the other side of the church had her hair up? And that was Miss Margie. Now, she was one of the charter members. She's the only one that's left. She lives right next door. There's a lot of them in there that come into the church at the early time, a lot of the older ones, but she was a charter member.
Wow. And were your parents members?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They were both passed away.
Yeah. Wow. How would you describe the congregation? I mean, just in terms of, I don't know what. Well, I guess I might be jumping ahead because I know that 30 or 40 years later, there was another group that split off.
Yeah.
But you said some remained with this congregation.
Yeah.
And what do you think they had in common that kept this group together?
Well, really the ones that split off was ones that came into the church during when the Leroys was here about 25 years ago. But a lot of them was the ones that formed the other church. I would say it was more of a personality thing. They're much more conservative even than what we are. And they didn't like the way some things were going and wanted to change, and some of the people that hadn't left, but now, like I say, they've already started another church, and all of those people have moved on. So if it had held for a while, we'd still be together.
Yeah.
But it was just, I can't help but say it was kind of more of a personality thing. The one that spoke yesterday, Nelson.
Yes.
He was the preacher at that time.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize he'd been a preacher
Yeah, he
of
was
this
pastor of that for several years.
Oh.
And part of them wanted to keep them, and part of them wanted to go. We had an element that I believe that once a preacher had been there 2 years, that was enough. I mean, they got the reputation for you. Well, if you go, don't expect to stay more than 2 years because they'll be tired of you.
Oh, my goodness.
And they were the ones that fell out.
Well, I was going to ask if in your time
Yeah.
at this church, if there'd been a lot of preachers coming and going, but
Oh, yeah.
goodness.
Until that, and then after, that's about most of the time the preachers stayed as long as they wanted to. We didn't have that. We had a couple that we had a problem with, and they just moved on. I guess it's right, but it didn't split, or we didn't run them off. They knew to go.
Yeah. Wow. Well, are there any particular preachers stand out in your mind over the years that were leaders
Yeah.
of the church that?
Like I say, naturally the Leroys, and I say a lot of the time I was gone, because we was 27 years in service, and we were just occasional weekends home.
I see.
And also Frank Webb, he was there for 7, 8 years. He was from West Virginia, and he and his family, they were really outstanding. But and he just felt when he got ready to leave that he was being led to move on. He had done, in other words, his work here was finished, and it was his own vision. We're still in close contact with him. Love him dearly.
That's good.
But I say he and Brother Leroy.
Now,
I guess it.
Brother Leroy was a pastor? Okay. And
He was pastor here 25 years ago. And he moved on, but he said he never felt that his work here was finished. The conflict was beginning. He saw it coming. And he said he just didn't want to be in it. And so he resigned. But always wanted to come back, and we were thrilled to have him back. I mean, you've met her, and you can imagine what. And he was only here 8 months before he passed away.
Oh my goodness!
And 3 months of that was where he had cancer. And that's his moment. When they found him, it was 3 months. About 3 months, he passed away.
Now, Kurt mentioned yesterday about someone made the sign, "Holiness unto the Lord."
Yeah, his father did that. Had it made. Samuel Davis was the one that painted it. He was good at that, and plus he was an artist anyway.
Curtis's father.
Uh-huh.
And then he said your husband made something?
The cross.
Made the cross.
He made the cross. And he mentioned that my husband's one of them, everything, by the book, and had to be just right. I mean, and we were the kind who was extreme one way, me the other. And I mean, if you've got to have, if it's something you got to have 2 weeks from now, you do it today. And I was one more, if you got to have it 2 weeks from now, you do it the day before or the night before. But anyway, Kurt mentioned about him being who was scared the velvet wasn't going to hang right. It's afraid it was going to sag for the weight and all that.
What was your husband's name?
Tommy Guthrie.
Okay. And was he a woodworker?
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see, he made this table here and scattered around stuff that he'd made.
Wow.
He did beautiful work. He was a perfectionist, so when he did something, I have a desk in the back that he made. And he started it when he was in school, got interested in it.
Wow. Good.
Yeah, some places around.
Did he build boats?
Mm-mm.
No.
It's just woodworking he loved to do.
Yeah. That's a beautiful cross.
Yeah, I think he did well with it, too.
Yeah.
He figured it out for himself. It has the fluorescent lights inside. And a lot of people think it's coming from the back, and they can't understand how it's doing it.
I've been fascinated with that.
But the fluorescent bulbs are inside. That cross is a box, and the bulbs are inside it.
And he designed that?
Yeah.
Gosh, he's talented. Yeah. Well, let's see. Moving on. Well, you were saying. We talked about that split to the Grace Holiness Church, and you've been saying that you were away, but you came back and
it had happened, and from what I've been understand, that's what it was. They had some of them that wanted another pastor, and some of them didn't. So the ones that wanted another one went out and started their own.
And Kurt Nelson was the pastor at the time.
And it was a personality thing too with him. Kurt still is was a very outspoken person, and what he had to say wasn't wrong, but well, you could tell by the way he talked there.
Mm-hmm.
Fine person. He and his whole family, they were just. And if there's any of them got cutting up in church, and he didn't think they were, in other words, doing something or saying things that he didn't think, he'd tell them stuff. Talk to them about it, And some people will take constructive criticism, and others won't. You know how that goes. get insulted instead of trying to take the good from it.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the music in the church. Since you were young, who's been musical leaders? Would you say in the church?
The Rose is Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And have you been to the Lighthouse Chapel yet?
No.
Right next to there's Hallis Rose goes there now. Well, he came from that church too.
Oh, he did.
But he's one of the musical ones. And the first of them was Reva Pearl and what's Patty's mother's name? Ruby Lewis and Hallis. They got Ann has pictures of them. They did a radio program and that was taken there. And they were the first of otherwise it was choir members. But Ann has a lot of the old pictures.
No kidding.
That you might
That would be neat. So did they used to sing trios?
Yeah.
Those three you're talking
There
about?
was Ruby and Reva and Hallis that had the trio. Then they had some younger ones over the years that are middle-aged now that sang when they were,
Yeah. Did you ever sing in the choir?
No, I can't carry a tune in a bucket.
Oh,
I just
think you
enjoy it.
can. Yeah. Well, that's good. Who was there a choir director back then? Did you talk about? No, they just get together.
Yeah, we have more director in now than we've ever had. But we have a couple of real good ones, Ian, Elaine, and Derek.
Mm-hmm.
They're both good.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get them to pay attention to them.
Oh,
Sometimes
goodness.
they still go off on their own. I heard it last night. Somebody in the choir had got ahead or behind or something, and I could pick up on it. Some of the rest of them said they didn't notice it, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
It was all right.
Yeah. I was gonna say, did they always have organ and piano playing?
No,
I like that.
this is the first organist we've had was Edith, and I reckon
She's
about
organist now?
15. No, more than that. And she's been playing it for about 20 years, I guess.
Mm.
But Clint was one of those. He can pick up any musical instrument and start playing it. It's right disgusting. I told him one day, it's not fair for you to have it all and me to have none. And he played the, what was it? What was the horn he played? No, it wasn't a trombone. It was a
Trumpet?
yeah. I asked him the other day about that. I think he got rid of it. And he played that. He played the accordion, and he played the organ, and he played the piano. And
Oh my
so
goodness.
before they got the organ, they had all types of music like that.
They did.
Yeah.
I see.
But they've had the organ, I said, 20, 25 years. Something.
Right. Who's the organist now? Is that
Edith.
Edith, you're
Edith
talking
Russell.
Edith Russell.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's great. And Reba Pearl used to play the piano.
Piano. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it sounds like she was phenomenal.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
She was the leader of the pack. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Was she there as long as you remember?
Yes.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah, see what Kurt said. He was 54 years old, and well, it's been all that time. She's been there from the beginning, I guess, from just a young girl.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, we were terribly perplexed when she passed away with that. What are we going to do, you know? Because she had been there all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
Lord does supply.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll see in Ann's letter how she mentioned that she feels that even as a child she was being prepared for this. She wouldn't play by notes. She didn't want it. And just right on up to where she's playing now.
Now you're saying that a lot of the folks don't that in that congregation that's singing the choir that don't read music.
Nah.
Uh-huh.
They'll learn it by listening. And well, most of them know to look when they see the notes go up or go down. That's about it. That they learn by listening. Elaine and Ann and them will teach them.
Mm. And
Now you'll find that have you been to the Methodist church? Only when they had, but they had a curtain in. Clinton in singing then, did their choir sing any that night?
now I went one Sunday night and heard just a few
Yeah, I was saying,
pieces. Yeah.
their choir is good, but they're more structured than ours.
Well, yours, I'm just amazed that there were 12 or 13 members, and it sounded like twice.
Yeah. Well, that the music helps that too. That guitar makes all the difference in the world. That's why I made sure that he was going to be there when you were going to be there.
That bass guitar.
Yeah. It really does. If you could hear them sing without it, then you'd see what I meant.
That's neat. And I couldn't even see him, but I thought
Yeah.
I heard something, that was there. Well, are there any special hymns that you think the choir or that church particularly likes to sing? Or
Well, you heard the Redeeming Love.
Yeah.
And they love the old hymns, all those. And, the choir does another one that's beautiful that I love. Is that some call it Heaven, I call it Home. That's beautiful too. But I think, for considering that the choir's what it is, I think they do well on all of them.
Oh yeah.
But I'd say Amazing Grace is the all-around favorite, which you'll find so many of the churches do.
That's a beautiful.
Within the Protestant realm.
Do you have any particular favorites?
Redeeming Love.
Redeeming Love,
That was
yeah.
where they got that. I had a tape. I believe it was some singers from West Virginia that did it. And I heard them on the radio, and I called the radio. No, it was a church from up near Winston-Salem. And they were playing it on the radio. And I called the radio station and found out who they were and sent to them and got one of their tapes. And
Wow.
then I sat with it and copied the words off and played and recorded the tape onto another one and gave it to them. But they said that years ago they had sung that. I said, I've gone through all of this, and now you tell me. They said, well, they didn't know it because it had been so long, and they just got away from it. So that, and also the one I was talking about, some call it Heaven, I call it Home. That is another one that we got that way.
Oh,
So I tell them, they said they
that's a lot of
kid
work
me.
on
They
your
say we sing and you tell us what to sing. But I guess I have more time to listen and hear these things. So
Yeah. That's great.
turn that off for just a minute. Let me
Sure.
go check that tape.
I wanted to ask about how much you did make tapes of the service, and
Oh, but I'd record it myself. Mostly singing. We didn't record preaching a whole lot. But I'd carry that tape recorder with us, and
yeah,
I had tape and I had loads of tapes that we did of just church singing.
just the singing.
Yeah, church and the specials.
Yeah.
So we'd like to do that.
Why would you make the tapes so that you could listen to them
Yeah.
at home? Yeah.
And like I said, my husband's special. He worked out in the shop a lot with his woodwork, and also outside on the vines and stuff. And he'd just take them along with him and listen to them. He loved to listen to them. He thought a lot of Clint and Kurt and them. He enjoyed their singing, so we'd record it and just for a minute. And sometimes they'd come looking for a song that they had sung and it got off on or something. And they'd come get my tapes and get it back.
Gosh. And you said you had tapes for years, right?
Yeah.
20 years ago. Yeah.
Back as far as 10 years anyway.
That's good. So how did it get back to the Nelsons and they came up through your church, Clinton and Curtis?
Yeah.
When did it come to pass that they started their group, their singing group?
Well, like I said, they started with the church 50 years ago. And as Kurt won't admit that he can sing. He doesn't think he can sing. I think most, of course, he never wanted to do it, but he does. He sings. He sings well. But Clint, since he was a little fella, he'd stand beside his mom or sit on the piano stool and sing with her. And then he came along, and his son did the same until he got up in the teen years and went off in another direction. But he was talented too. His son is. He's very musical.
And they started singing, going to special singings at other churches, or
Yeah, they started out there up in Pennsylvania, all over.
wow.
Clint, before he converted, they had a group that was all over the East Coast. They were really going up with their rock music and that. And some of the ones that was with his group are still now, little groups, other places. But what it could have been, may have been, I guess he's, like I say, Satan himself has flaunted that in his face, I'm sure, more than once. That he said he never had no desire to go back with it.
And he came back to the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so that tape, you showed me one tape they made in the late 80s, and that was his mother.
Now I have some more of them, but he'll have them all, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If he doesn't, I have them all that goes back to the beginning. This Kenneth Whitehurst was with them back in the 60s, 70s.
Okay. So their descendants are...
Yeah, they were at the beginning of it, and it's their descendants that's still carrying it on.
Yeah.
Now, you haven't heard the ladies' trio, did you?
I don't
They
think
call
so.
themselves the Scrub Team, but they're not. They sing beautiful. And
Who's a member of that?
that's Elaine and Edith, the organ player, and Ann, the pianist, and Judy over here, Judy Guthrie, and Clint's mother.
Are there other trios in the church?
Oh, they
And then
intermingle, and sometimes it's quartet, sometimes it's trio, and then they do a duet. They just
that's great.
whatever's there sings.
And you never
And
know.
Patty Taylor, she sings with women's trio, quartet, whatever. She was the one in the choir, had the short blonde hair, stood over next to Elaine, and she sings with them too.
Yeah. And they call it specials, right?
Yeah, they don't have no names for themselves, except for the ladies call themselves the Scrub Team.
That's cute. And you never know from service to service who will sing.
Well, the singers, they usually plan a little bit which of them's going to sing. But if something happens, that one of them can't be there, then another group, whoever is there, will pick up and give one.
That's great. Do you remember when you were young? Do you remember the choir and the singing back then?
Oh yeah. They've always had a strong choir. Like you said, you see at one time there'd be 25 or 30 of them in the choir.
Wow.
So with the 10, 15 that they have now. But I tell them sometimes, I said, I don't understand it because you sound like there's 50 of you. And they said, well, maybe it's because we sing like we feel like singing.
Tell them about singing, how they sing by letter.
Sing by letter, or just open up and let her fly.
Who was it who said that?
Oliver Griffin, the Sunday school superintendent.
Okay.
And I say he's one of them. Ever since he's been there, he's one of the happiest people that I know. No matter how rough it gets, and he's been through some hard, rough places, he's always with a happy exterior, And he's Sunday school superintendent and teaches the men's class. he does the maintenance, takes care of the church. He says oh, one of those, he just loves to go there, whether service or not. He's an exceptional person. He's another one of them that think we couldn't survive without him, but there's always somebody.
Well, now he led the singing that on
Wednesday night. Yes, that's right. You saw him.
Yeah. We were talking about hymns and music when you were younger.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you remember any specific hymns.
Well, I say remember all the old ones. You can find in most any hymnal. Like I say, there was always Amazing Grace and the Rock of Ages. And as you've asked me, I'm going to blank, but all the old ones that are still in the hymnals that we have.
Yeah. Now you have two different hymnals, right?
We've got 3.
You have 3 hymnals.
We find one that had songs that we wanted, and we combine them. Well, that one hadn't got it. Well, we'll get some of them too.
I see.
Brother Webb used to kid us about that. He said, well, you haven't learned all that's in that one. I said, well, we've learned all we want that's in it, so we'll get us another that's got more.
Oh, so are your hymnals for the Wesleyan Church, or it's just...
No, really, the red one, that was a Wesleyan and Nazarene publishing. And the back one was it's a Pentecostal hymn. That had songs that we left up. And the little red one that we use mostly on Wednesday nights, that's has the Gaither, Bill Gaither, and all those in it.
I see.
So we're quite a mixture.
Is that little red one, is it that with any particular denomination, you think? Yeah. Oh, I see. I was wondering what your role is in the church nowadays.
I'm treasurer and attempt to teach the ladies Sunday school class.
Wow.
And member of the board.
You helped out with the dinner. You kind of were tracking.
Well, yeah. Kurt said, yes, I see you're still working at it. I said, yeah.
Who plans
things
things
will
like
do,
that?
can do, huh?
Yeah. Who plans things like that? Like when you're having a special dinner or something like that?
We just announced that we're having it. And I'll sit at the hall.
Oh. Another thing I wanted to ask is, I'm just trying to understand, the different churches on the island. And do you consider your church a holiness church?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think makes it?
The belief and the furtherance of the second work of grace, which came from the old Methodist, the act of sanctification.
I see.
That more than anything else. Where it said the Baptists, they stick with the all at once, and the holiness is more or less that carry the belief of the second work of grace, sanctification.
So it's a doctrine.
Yeah.
Doctrine that keeps it.
That's why I said there's 4 churches on this island. It should be one. It's just a matter of one of them maybe is a little more liberal, or another one's more conservative, or some call it being maybe more strict in can-dos and can't-dos.
And yet your church you had told me you didn't feel was so strict.
Yeah, we have, like I say, we have some that, well, let's say from south that can't do or don't want to do. Where some of the others don't feel that way about it, but I'm not the judge. I've got me to look out for. And I don't condemn them because they don't believe exactly the way I do about it. Because if Christ and the Holy Spirit doesn't condemn them, then it's not my place to.
Yeah, you said it was more up to the individual.
Oh, now you got a fire. that tree bough in there.
We got some needles burning there in the fireplace. Wow. But those sort of things are what seems to pull some people.
It will, yeah. Just like, I don't know if it was yesterday morning or last night that Kurt was speaking on that. There's little isms and schisms that'll tear churches and people apart when it shouldn't. I mean, it really should.
Mm-hmm.
Most especially when basic. What is he making out of that?
I think he's got it. There. All right. Well, I don't know. Is there anything I missed?
I don't know. And like I say, I don't know altogether how much more you want or how much more to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I want to talk with Elaine and Ann maybe about music, specific, real, but just sort of get an idea of the history of the church.
Yeah.
That sort of thing is important to speak with them.
She has some of the history of the church written down, and where I give you glimpses of it, but she has put a lot more of it in writing. Because that's what she's interested in doing, is the history of it. But if you can get her to slow down long enough, she's got more energy than I could handle. I told her one day I just wanted part of it. I couldn't handle all of it.
Do you have any reel-to-reel tapes?
Yeah, that's right. We talked about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm
See if
going
I
to these out.